Hello students, today we'll start with Unit 4, Introduction to Business Organization. Meaning of business organization. A business organization is an organization which is engaged in some industrial or commercial activity. It represents an institutional arrangement of carrying on any kind of business activity. It may be owned and controlled by a single individual or by a group of individuals who have entered into formal or informal agreement to jointly conduct the business. So, we have completed our Unit 1, and in Unit 1 we studied about the nature and purpose of business. So, now we will begin with our Unit 2, where we will learn about various business organization, forms of business organization. So, business organization is a industrial or commercial activity or any business activity that is owned and controlled by either single or group of individuals who have verbally or by written entered into a contract or agreement. Every business undertaking is a separate and distinct unit identity and separate ownership. So, every business undertaking has got a separate identity and a separate control and ownership. So, when we will see further, we will see the different types of business organization. According to Wheeler, a business undertaking is a concerned company or enterprise which buys and sells, is owned by one or a group of persons, and is managed under a specific set of operating policies. So, a business undertaking can be a company or enterprise and which is engaged in buying and selling. Either it is run by one person or group of persons, and there are certain policies which they have to follow. Characteristics of business organization. The first one is separate identity. Every business undertaking has a separate identity. It has a distinct name and a separate existence. Its assets and liabilities are independent of other undertakings. Its accounts are separate from those of persons who own it. So, a business organization's first characteristics is it is a separate, or it has got a separate identity, or it is recognized separate or differently than the person who run the business. Like the business has its own accounts with its own assets and liabilities, and the person who are owning it or who are running the business, they have their own account. So, the person and the business both are having a separate identity, both resembles their own identity. Second one, independent ownership. A business undertaking is owned by persons who contribute its capital. The owner may be private individuals or government. Every business undertaking thus has an independent unit of ownership. So, a business undertaking is owned by whoever invests money in the business. Either it can be owned by the individuals privately or by the. Next we have is independent management. The form of management of an undertaking depends upon its nature and size and legal requirements, but every business undertaking has its own independent management. The management of one undertaking does not interfere in the workings of other undertakings. The management of each undertaking take independent decision concerning different aspect of business. So, the third characteristics is every business undertaking has got its independent management, and when the management has got different departments, so each department works and takes decision as per their own department. They do not interfere in other department. Number 4, element of risk. Every business undertaking involves risk. Profit is the reward for bearing risk. The risk of an undertaking is borne by its owners, though some of the risk may be covered through insurance. Okay. So here every businessman has to take a challenge of taking the risk. Without risk, business cannot run, and profit is the reward for bearing risk. Some of the risk can be covered by the insurance company, but some of the risk cannot be covered. The businessmen have to, or owners have to, they have to bear by themselves. They have to bear by themselves. Like some of the risk which cannot be covered is like something which is too likely to happen. Like if your factory is in a place where there's frequent earthquake zone or flood zone, so in that case maybe you won't be these kinds of risk might be called as uninsurable. Or if because of the safety hazard, maybe your reputation and the name of the company has come down, so the insurance company cannot value the reputation of the company, or maybe they will value in a wrong way. So your real loss cannot be covered by the insurance company. There can be political risk, there can be many other kinds of risk, like even the pandemic risk is a partly uninsurable risk. Why? Pandemic is the outbreak of disease that spreads over the entire country or over the whole world, like we are facing coronavirus right now. So these kind of risk cannot be predicted, and even if the damage or the loss caused by the individual or the companies cannot be predicted. So there are certain insurance company who are ready to give insurance, but they will not be able to cover the exact loss made by the individuals or the company. So the coverage will be limited. So we can say some part of the money will have to be borne by the owners themselves. So the first one was separate identity. Second, independent ownership. Third, independent management. And the last characteristics, number 4, element of risk. Types of business organizations. Business undertakings may be classified into 3 broad categories as follows. Private sector undertakings. The undertakings are owned, controlled and financed by private businessmen. There is no government participation in them. Reliance Industries, Tata Motors, Bharti Enterprise are examples of private sector organizations. So, a private sector organization or undertaking is controlled and financed by private businessmen. There is no government interference or participation. The main characteristics are as under. Private ownership and control. A private sector undertakings is fully owned and controlled by private individuals. It may be owned by one individual or a group of individuals jointly. When owned by one person, it is called sole proprietorship. A group of persons may join own the firm in the form of joint Hindu family business, partnership, joint stock company or cooperative society. So, a private sector undertaking has got private ownership or control. Either it can be individually controlled like a sole proprietorship, or a group like joint Hindu family or partners to 10-person partnership, or a joint stock company or a cooperative society. Profit motive. The main objective of private sector undertakings is earning profits. Profits provide the reward for risk assumed and the required return on the capital. So, the private sector undertaking, the main objective is to earn profit. Profit is the reward for risk, like we learned earlier, and it is a return to the capital invested. No state participation. There is no state participation by central or state governments in ownership and control of the private sector undertakings. So, there is neither a state nor a central government interference in the control and ownership of such private sector undertakings. Number D, private finance. The capital of private undertakings is arranged by its owners. The sole traders contributes the capital of a sole proprietorship. In case of partnership, capital is invested by the partners. A joint stock company may raise capital by the issue of shares and debentures. A private sector undertakings can also raise loans to meet its short and long term requirements. So, over here, if it is a sole trading business, so the individual person who is starting a capital or who is starting a sole proprietorship will invest in the business individually. In case of partnership, the partners will invest. In case of joint stock company, they can raise funds or capital by issuing their shares and debentures to the public, who will buy the shares, and that money can be invested as capital. And even the private sector can raise loans from the banks or financial institutions to meet its short and long term requirements. Number E, independent management. A private undertakings is managed by its owners. In case of sole proprietorship and partnership, the owners directly manage the firm. The management of joint stock company lies in the hands of directors who are elected representatives of the shareholders. So, here management is entirely independent. In case of sole proprietorship and partnership, the management is done directly by the owners. In case of joint stock, the group of directors, who are called as board of directors, elected representative of shareholders, they are the one who manage the business. The first main characteristics is private ownership and control. So, the private sector undertaking has got individual or group of individuals privately owning and controlling the business. Second, profit motive. So, the main motive of private undertaking is to earn profit as a reward for risk and to cover the capital invested. No state participation. There is no state or central or state government interfering in the working of the private sector undertaking. Private finance. The finance is done privately. Like in sole proprietorship, the single person who is starting the business will invest. In partnership, whoever the partners are. In joint stock, they issue shares and debentures to the public from where they raise the funds, and even they can raise short term and long term finance to run their business. Independent management. Every private sector is managed by the owners. Like in sole proprietorship and partnership, it is managed directly. But in joint stock company, the board of directors, who are the representatives of the shareholders, they are the one who manage the business. Second, we have public sector undertakings. The undertakings are owned and operated by the central and the state government. The main characteristics of public sector undertakings are given below. So, the public sector undertakings are owned and run by the government that belongs to the state or the central government. It is not owned privately. The first main characteristics is state ownership. Public undertakings are fully owned by the government or some public authority. For example, Reserve Bank of India is owned by the central government, while Delhi Transport Corporation is owned by the government of Delhi state. So, the public undertaking is fully run and owned by the government, either central or the state government or the public authority. Like central government owns Reserve Bank of India, government of Delhi state owns Delhi Transport Corporation, the government of Uttar Pradesh owns the Uttar Pradesh Parivahan Nigam. So, it is under the state or the government ownership. Number B, government control. The ultimate control of public sector undertaking lies with the government. So, it does not only own it, but the government has got a full control over the public sector undertakings. Number C, service motive. The primary objective of the public sector undertaking is to render service to the public at large. In order to serve the public, it may even incur loss. For example, Food Corporation of India provides food grains to the public at subsidized prices. So, the primary or the main motive of any public sector before earning profit is to provide service, and while providing service, many times the government, they incur or they get into a loss, like they procure or they buy food grains from the farmers at a reasonable price from the farmers, because both the sellers and the consumers are the part of the government. So, they buy from the farmers who are the sellers at a reasonable price and then store it in the Food Corporation of India or go down and distribute the same to the public at lower price through the ration card. And so, here they sometimes even get into a loss, buying at a right price, reasonable price, and selling to the or giving to the public at a low or subsidized price. Number D, state financing. The government provides the capital and the funds through appropriation from its budget. The government may also provide loans from time to time from state exchequer. So, the government, they prepare the budget, and as per the budget, the funds are been provided to different public undertakings. And from time to time, if there is a need, the government takes out money from the state account or exchequer, we can say, and finances the public undertaking. Next we have is bureaucratic management. The management of public sector undertakings is bureaucratic in the sense that their operations are governed by certain rules and regulations prescribed by the government. So, the meaning is given here very clearly, the meaning of bureaucracy. Here the government has got their own system, or they have got their own decision which is taken up by the state or the central government officials, or rather by the elected representatives. And so, in bureaucratic management, it is run as per the rules and regulations, and everyone has to follow. There has to be proper balance between the power and responsibility. There has to be proper flow of command from top to lower bottom, and there has to be a proper rationality, and the bureaucratic power is everything has to be done systematically and according to the rules and regulations. Like you cannot take your decision on your own, everything has to be done under the government officials rules and regulations. Number F, public accountability. Public sector undertakings are accountable to the public at large for their performance and results. The annual audit of these undertakings is conducted by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Moreover, their annual reports are subject to discussion in the Parliament of or state legislature. So the public sector undertaking, they are accountable. They have to show their accounts, their performance and result to the public. And the Comptroller or the Auditor General of India, they annually audit the such undertakings, and the reports are been put into discussion in the Parliament and the state legislature, so that how is the performance and how much fund is required for the next year plan. So everything can be discussed. So let us look into the main characteristics of public sector undertakings. The first one, state ownership. Second, government control. Third, service motive. Fourth, state financing. Fifth, bureaucratic management. Sixth, public accountability. So number 3, joint sector undertakings. Joint sector consists of business undertakings wherein the ownership, control and management is shared jointly by the government, the private entrepreneurs and the public at large. According to the guidelines laid by the Government of India, the share capital of joint sector undertaking without foreign participation is to be divided as follows: government 26%, private businessmen 25% and public 49%. So as per the guidelines laid by the Government of India, if there is no foreign company participation, then the government will hold 26% of the share, private business men 25% and public 49%. No single individual or organization can hold more than 25% of the paid up capital of the joint sector without the permission of central government. So if the private businessman wants to hold more than 25%, they have to take permission from the central government. In case of foreign participation, the respective shares will be government 25%, Indian entrepreneur 20%, foreign investors 20% and investing public 35%. So if there is any foreign company participating, then the share will be distributed as government will have 25%, Indian entrepreneur 20%, foreign investor 20% and the public 35%. Examples: Cochin refineries and Gujarat state fertilizers are example of joint sector undertakings in our country. The main characteristics of joint sector enterprise are as follows: mixed ownership. The government, private entrepreneurs and the investing public jointly own a joint sector enterprise. So in mixed ownership, we have government, private and the investing public. Number B, combined management. The management and control of joint sector enterprise lies with the nominees or representatives of the government, private business and the public. Number C, share capital. The shares of the government, private businessmen and the public in capital are 26%, 25% and 49% respectively. The aim is to pool the financial resources and the technical know-how of the state and the private individuals. So this is how the joint sector is: mixed ownership. The ownership is government, private, public. Management is also combined with government, private and public, and the share capital is divided as 26, 25, 49 when there is no foreign investment, and when there is a foreign investment, then it becomes as 25, 20, 20 and 35. Now let us look into the main characteristics that we went through: mixed ownership, combined management and distribution of share capital. I hope you all understood, and thank you for watching.